What's up and welcome to my channel. My name is Ashley and I'm a six-figure reseller on Poshmark and eBay, and today I'll be going over the 2022 Poshmark algorithm changes. This is not going to be a video going over about any notes or takeaways from the fireside chats that they had. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend either of those, so if you're looking for a summary of those chats, there are a ton of really good informational videos on YouTube here. Just type in Poshmark algorithm or the search hack or fireside, and I'm sure you're gonna find some really good videos. I've just been taken away from those videos and what others have to say on Instagram, just from the community overall, and there are a lot of great things to learn from those, so I will kind of mention those in this video here today. But if you're looking for some more in-depth information, definitely go check those out. So what this video is going to be about is a little bit of a background summary, my thoughts on that, and some takeaways and tips that I have that you may be able to learn from what I have been doing throughout this time of the algorithm change and what I've kind of learned from it all. Because I wasn't able to attend the fireside chats, and to be quite honest, I have been so busy traveling and just needing to focus on my business that I haven't really put too much thought in beforehand of these algorithm changes. So I am by no means an expert in the subject matter right now, and I think that is a huge thing to remember overall though, is that probably no one fully completely is. There are a lot of unknowns with Poshmark and the algorithm changes and what they really know on the back end here. So that's probably going to be a huge kind of just like keynote of this video. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about, first we'll go over a little bit of like a timeline, what these changes are, just to give you a background on everything. Before 2022, there really wasn't too much of an algorithm. I'd always been prior that I really don't believe in that algorithm. Yes, I understood there was somewhat of an algorithm. It was pretty much based off timestamps. That was a huge part of their algorithm in terms of their search engine. So I would say it was more of a search engine than a algorithm. They pretty much sorted things through just shared, just in, recently, price dropped, and I forgot what the other one is, but pretty much everything based off timestamp. So when you had shared the item, when you had listed the item, when you had dropped the price of an item. So it was really easy for them, and it was a pretty basic algorithm or search engine in comparison to a lot of other sites, and that is an important part to remember throughout all these changes. So starting in 2022, and it did trickle a little bit in 2021 of adding in relevance and recommended, Poshmark did start to change up their algorithm a bit more to more focus on what the user is looking for versus just these timestamps, because I think they really are wanting to increase the buyer experience and really be able to show them what they are truly looking for, or even be able to understand a little bit better about what they're looking for, so that overall they can increase more sales. However, the biggest change happened in February of 2021, where I feel like a lot of people saw the changes of the algorithm. I did not hear too many people having too many great experiences from it. I think that was because they had a more drastic change over all users versus just some of them. So after some feedback from the community and some major outlash, Poshmark reached out saying, hey, we do recognize and we do hear you. We have been doing some testing. We're sorry for not really telling you. We have reverted back, but we will be looking into the algorithm further, so do expect some changes. And I don't really know when they started testing out again. I want to say pretty much they probably never stopped testing. They probably have always been throughout this testing phase and working on their algorithm, even though they said that they initially did change things back, which I think they changed it back a little, but of course we're still working on things. So the changes were still occurring. People were still experiencing these changes and seeing a decrease in sales. And so that is where we've come to today, or past couple of weeks, where Poshmark came out with some fireside chats to discuss these changes and recommend some tips in order to help with sales. So obviously these chats did not go over so well. What we have learned is that there have been A/B testing in a live environment, which is obviously not good for a lot of different people, how it affects the sales and everything like that. They should have had a specific test environment to test these changes and see how the users interact based on a test environment. However, that was not the case. I don't know why they did that. I am honestly not in the tech myself, so I have no idea the differences, the effects, and what that would cause, or even monetarily wise, or issues with the software, the backend systems, all that kind of stuff. I don't know why they did it. if you're in tech, maybe you can shed some light, but overall they didn't do that. And so I think that's where a lot of people have been really upset with this whole A/B testing thing, but I'll go into my thoughts later on that. But that kind of leads us to where we are today. I honestly don't fully know where we are today, to be honest, if the algorithm is still changing, how they're working on the A/B environment, if they're keeping the same accounts and certain testings the same, if there is a control group that is changing throughout different users. I literally have no idea, but now I'll just provide my thoughts on all of it here. So first off, I will say it wasn't super cool of Poshmark just to make a lot of these changes without notifying people. I do understand where they're coming from with it, but there's a lot of things they could have done a lot better, and even how they presented the information in their fireside chats. But being in a company myself where we do experience a lot of those issues, I never like to put any assumptions or attack any company or any positions or any people in those positions at the company, because you really never understand what's going on in the back end, what red tape they have, especially now being a public company with investors. I feel like a lot has changed since they went public, and I think there's so many more factors that a lot of us do not realize that go into that and making these changes in order to meet the needs and the desires of these external investors, people coming into play. While I do think everyone's entitled to their feelings and you do deserve to be upset about different changes, always remember it's so important to be understanding and understand how much you don't know about what may be going on. Like I mentioned, I haven't really been focusing too much on these algorithm changes at all. I've literally been working my business the same way since it started. I have not changed anything at all. So back in February though, I did experience a drop in sales. You can go back to my what sold for that month. I had a major decrease in sales. I mean, I wouldn't say it was major, but it was a big decrease from prior months. However, everything switched back to normal and things did work out fine. Once they switch up and said that they were going to go revert back and just continue a little bit more testing, I think back at end of February or beginning of March is when they said they were going to do that. And ever since then, things have been fine for me, so I really haven't focused too much on these algorithm changes, especially since I have been traveling so much. I've been going and I've been coming and just working my business and then taking off again, so I really haven't had too much time to focus on that. And my sales have been good. I have had my best month, which was back in April. I made a video on that, and now even in May I beat those April numbers, so I can't complain on it. And I did have a large increase from eBay that has helped, but Poshmark sales were steady and going throughout both those months as well. So that's an initial reason why I haven't focused it too much on it, because I really haven't been affected in any negative way by it. And initially I heard a lot of people, talk about this A/B testing, and then talking about how people in the control group are people that are flying first class making all these sales. And because I hadn't thought about it, I was just hearing all this different information. I was like, oh, maybe that's me. But after actually thinking about it, I really don't understand how people are coming up with this A/B testing with closets, because Poshmark isn't testing closets. They're testing the search engine and accounts with the search engine and their algorithm of making sales. So if your account has been affected by the change, it would affect how you are personally viewing things in the search bar, but it doesn't equate to mean that your buyers are in a control group or not, and if they're able to find your closet that way. So in the instance, it would be if all of your buyers were affected by the algorithm, they probably had a really hard time finding your items. And in that case, you probably did have a change in sales. However, it's really hard to believe that 100% of your target audience was affected by the algorithm to have sale change. Who knows? They could be reaching out to a group that made certain purchases. I really don't know. Maybe they were more likely to switch out groups of people that are more likely to buy lower priced items because it's less of a risk for them than risking buyers who are more likely to purchase higher priced items, which are in my closet. So I really don't know how that is, but I don't think it's correct to say that certain closets are affected, because it's not the closets, it's the buyers, if that makes sense. So there's no need to feel like you want to opt out or opt in of this testing. It would only be if you're a buyer and you're really upset about not being able to find your stuff that maybe it would affect your experience on Poshmark. So because my sales have been continuing to do well, I'm just going to keep doing what I have been doing and focus on the practices I've been putting in place, and even some of the things that they have talked about in the search hack fireside chats in order to help maintain my sales. Because I really do think that the things coming from the search hacks are things that are going to help drive sales. And I'll talk about a little bit reason of why you think maybe some other practices may be working better. Because with the Google search hacks that they had talked about with the latest Zoom call that they had, they talked a lot about Google and Google searchability. And I do think that Poshmark is trying to mimic Google searchability in order to help understand the needs of their buyers and how they can better help provide to them. Because Google is one of the smartest search engines out there. Everyone has a different search engine based off of what you've searched before, based off like cookies and stuff like that, I guess, based off where you live. If you type in a certain couple words, everyone's going to come up with a different phrase, and that's based off what Google has learned about you. And I know Poshmark is trying to move to something a little bit more smarter and enhance where they were before. So that makes sense a lot of why they're going through so many hiccups, because they probably went through one of the most, how do I say this, dumbest search engines to something they're wanting to implement that is a lot more smarter and better for their buyers. And so of course there's going to be hiccups along the way. Tech is so confusing sometimes, and there's a lot that goes into it, and one thing always changes another. So the fact that it's only been a couple months, I do expect that we're going to continue to have a little bit of hiccups throughout this time here. So definitely expect for more of that to come, but just be understanding of it. And I think just keep those best practices in mind in order to help make sure that you're still making sales. So I'll go over some tips here, and these are a lot of things that I'm currently doing or I found of what has helped me have an increase in sales actually. And one of the biggest things is still stay consistent with your listing. Especially if you look back and you feel like you haven't been consistent, it's really easy to always put blame on something else when your sales are not good. So make sure you are being honest with yourself and making sure that you're being consistent with your listing. And even if you can do more, try that out. I doubled my new listings between February and March, and that definitely did help a lot. Now I'm still hovering around 1,100 items in my closet versus 1,000. So that has really helped, I think, grow my sales. And I talked about that before in a previous video. So make sure you're staying consistent and make sure that all your other factors are remaining the same. So if there is any issues or any decrease in sales, it's a little bit easier to point out if it's an algorithm not versus anything that you're doing internally. The second thing is make sure you are sourcing items, or it's better to pick up items that have less competition. And it doesn't have to be something where it's the only item out there, but it does help if it is one of the only sizes that are out there, one of the only colors. The less competition you have, of course, the more likely you are to make a sale. And I think that's going to be even more important with algorithm changes, because Poshmark did come out and say that people are looking for specific items on Poshmark versus something like TikTok. People are just making more impulse buys of what they find. So therefore people are coming to Poshmark to find something. And I think a lot of people do know that there are changes with the algorithm, and people will manipulate things to make sure they find what they're looking for. So if you have something where it's one of the only size, the only color, the only style that they're looking for within a brand, then eventually, despite all the things of how hard it may be to come across your item, if they are in one of the groups that have been affected by it, then they will work hard to try to find it or even find it on Google. So doing so will help you better your chances versus someone searching for it and coming across another item just because it was easier and just buying that because they can't see your item. So during this time, avoiding saturation is going to be even more important than before. A big thing with this algorithm change has been about shortening your titles. However, I do think it is important to be somewhat specific in your titles. Maybe those really, really long titles that put in all the words are not going to be the best, since Poshmark did say that it's better to think in more the lines of just straight off what the user is going to be searching. However, I don't think it's going to be good just to put the brand name and then the category in there. If you're going to shorten your listing, go ahead, put the brand name, put like the color, a really descriptive part of it. Maybe it's got crochet on it, maybe it has sequins, something more along the lines of if you were searching comps and didn't know the style name of this item, what you would search for it. I personally still do put the style name in mine, and that is also a lot because I have more higher end items, and I feel like most of the time people are searching for more specific styles. So if you do have items similar to mine, maybe go ahead and keep the style name in as well, and like a couple other factors. But maybe if you feel like you've put an item in the title before that was a descriptive factor, but you feel like people really aren't searching it, go ahead and take that word out. I would say my titles are pretty much staying the same, but I'm probably not putting in the 1 to 2 words that I was putting in before just to fill up the title. And so the main reason I feel like it's really important to stick with this and do not just put in the brand name and the category or the brand name a couple of times is that we know that Poshmark is doing testing right now. So if you are putting in your titles like that and making sales that way, that's like a checkmark point for Poshmark and saying like, this is working, this is good. And we don't want that to be working or what is the norm or to be good moving forward. So keeping your titles how you want to be having your titles in with like probably at least 5 words is going to be a lot better than shortening it up, because if you make a sale with that kind of title, then we're letting Poshmark know that this is what's working to help people find their items. Because I really don't want to end up in a place where once they're done testing, they find out that that is what is golden and that is what is being done to find items. So I know it can be really tempting to have really short titles and put them that way to help people find your item potentially. However, I haven't seen in my case that I haven't been making sales having the titles that I do. So I do recommend that you don't just do the really tiny short titles just to make sales, because I think although it might be okay for the short term, it's really going to impact Poshmark and the algorithm and what they find is working in the long term. The next thing to do, if you're not already, is to get on eBay. A lot of people have talked about making sure to cross this other platforms, and it's even more important now. I mean, it's not more important, it's just maybe another push to help you get there. I think in the past couple months, eBay is starting to be a little bit more closer to 40% of my sales, and eBay is only continuing to grow. And I really do think with eBay, you get so much more sales, not just from adding more into your eBay store. So if you were start off with like 1,000 items in your store, you wouldn't necessarily match like my 1,000 items in my store. However, there's just so much benefit and so much growth that you have from being on it over time, from having more ratings, from building up a customer base on there. I have just seen so much growth just from being on it over the years, not necessarily from changing too much anything else. So if you aren't seeing a really great reward in the beginning, do know that it can take a lot of time and it can build up. You really just have to stick with it and be consistent. So those are my basic tips there, but I do recommend that you go search out any of the videos from the search hack and do implement any of those. There are a lot of really common tips out there, but it's more along the lines of just keep doing that and don't stray away from that, even how tempting it may be, in order to kind of rework the algorithm. However, actually, I do have another tip. This is more so for searching for items. It's what I found just to be a little bit more helpful if I find like I cannot find what I'm looking for on Poshmark. And what I will do usually is, instead of putting what I usually search in the search bar, I'll put it a little bit more vague. Usually I'm searching by style name. So for example, I'll just put the style name in the description. I won't put, if it's like, let's say it's a Free People Olivia dress. Like let's say before I would search like Free People Olivia maxi dress, something like that in the search bar. Instead of putting that, I'll put in Olivia, and then once I get all those results, I will filter in the brand name, I will filter in the category, and I will filter in the color. This way I'm making sure that I'm getting all of the actual branded Free People Olivia dresses that are within that category versus getting a brand of like Olivia pair of jeans or a different like color or something. This helps make sure that you are seeing what matches, at least having Olivia in the title, and fits all those different filters. So that's kind of what I find has been somewhat working for me when I'm trying to find what I am looking for. I don't do this always right off the bat, but if I search something and nothing's coming up, that is something that I will just do on my next time around just to see if I can get the results I want. Because I have found that with this algorithm change, it has affected the filter result a lot, as in when you take off my size or put in my size versus if you search all versus just what is available. There's so many different results that you do end up seeing. So I like to put on the filters that I mentioned, just because those are required filters and it lets me know what is going to best match what I'm looking for. Hopefully this video was helpful and reminds you just like keep going, keep working at it, don't give up. I know it can be a really hard time right now, and I know it's way easier for me to say than just to experience, since my sales have been good, but just shows that there is potential out there still with making sales on Poshmark, and it is better just to keep going with those better practices than finagling different things around. So make sure to give this video a thumbs up if it did so help you, and be sure to subscribe to my channel. I put out videos every Wednesday. I didn't do it last week, but usually every single Wednesday. So don't forget to turn on that notification button as well to make sure that you don't miss out. And if you want to connect with me on Instagram, you can do so. I'm at ReCloth Collection on there. Other than that, good luck everybody. I'm wishing everyone the best of sales during this time here, and I will see you next week. Bye.